In this video, we're gonna be looking at mixed teamed photographers. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. For those who don't know me, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in the south of England, here in Great Britain. And for the past 2 or 3 years, I've been reviewing pictures of my friends and colleagues. And so here at the Clever Photographer, we decided that that's what we're gonna do for our community, because it's something that is very popular. And it's been popular here as well. We've been doing it for about a month and a half. And we always have a great entries and it's always a lots of fun. So just as usual, because we got many photos to go through, we decided this week that we're gonna divide it between 3 different episodes. We already done the landscape photographers. Now we're gonna be looking at the mixed team photographers, and we're gonna be ending it up with the rest of the different photography subjects. One thing before we jump into the actual review and critics is a new thing we're gonna introduce this week, and it's basically overall rating at the end of each of the review. So that's just gonna give you idea where you're standing. We decided that we're gonna start with 5 different marks, 1 star to 5 stars, and basically the first star, when you get a 1 star, it means that you should go back to basics, back to the beginnings. And this is gonna be for all the photographers who just started, who basically just trying and seeing where they are. And there's absolutely no shame or anything wrong with you. It's just that really at this point, I would suggest you to either find a coach or mentor or get a masterclass or book and really take it step by step from the beginning. Learn how to control your camera. There's no shame about sticking to apertures on automatic modes, and think about your composition, learn from the others, and so on. When you have a 2 stars, it's something what's called more work required, more work to be done. And this is really for everyone who are past to the beginning. They know how to set their camera, they know how to capture the scene. However, they either may be very good at their technical skills, but really not there yet with their artistic and composition part, or even the post-processing, or the other way around, really some parts missing a lot. And you will already know throughout the review, if I'm commenting a lot on lots of stuff, that most of the time the 2 stars means that you still have a lot to do. 3 stars is something what we call on track. And when you have a 3 star, and to be honest, after the few weeks of the experience, this is gonna be probably the most frequent mark we're gonna give, because we have lots of photographers who are there. They understand what needs to be done when it comes to composition. They understand how to set up the camera. However, now they just need to take it and practice. They need to go out and learn from others, watch other websites and other places and learn from there, and really start to apply all the knowledge they have and put it all together. At the same time, also number 3 is when you already know what means to have a right composition and you know how to set up your camera. However, you're not always able to do it well and repeat it. Last thing, for you to actually able to move to the 4 star, I would be also looking for certain photography style in order to be able to recognize your editing and your capturing and so on. When you get a 4 star, that's pretty much a captures which are ready to be placed on your portfolio and offer the customer, either for a service or for prints or anything like that. So when I give a 4 star to a pictures, I'm pretty confident that's a pictures which could be on a website and being shared with the customers and viewers. And finally, 5 stars. This is the highest mark we can give, and there were already few throughout the weeks where I would mark them 5 star, and those are pictures which are pretty much ready to be sold. So capture of a beautiful landscape ready to be printed and sold, beautiful wedding photography where you're really ready to go out and start to get paid by that. This is where you're gonna receive the 5 stars. So I hope this is gonna add even more fun to our photography reviews. Just as always, if you have any ideas or any kind of new thing you would like us to add, we would love to hear from you. And the easiest way to do it is to comment under any of these videos or send us an email to info@cleverphotographer.com. So this is it. I think we're ready. Let's jump straight into it and let's look at our mixed team photographers. And here we are in a Lightroom, and we're gonna go straight into our photographers, and we're gonna be starting by Cheryl here. We have 7 photographers to look at, so let's start right away. So we have 2 pictures here, and let's talk about first impressions. So we have the parrot here, leaning on one side, and there is lots of blur behind him. And that's one picture. And then we have this cowboy girl standing in front of the truck creating some kind of silhouette scene. So first impression, I think it's very cute. However, I think the background is way too blurred. I think it really makes it almost look like the background is fake on him, and I think it's a little bit of a shame. I'm also not sure about the composition. I think there is a lot of empty space around, and the white balance also is a little bit tricky. However, as I say, I think it's very cute, and I think among the pet photographers, they would probably quite like it. This one is more interesting, and to be honest, I would probably prefer if the car wouldn't be there, if the lady would be just standing. I hope it's a lady, maybe it's a man. Anyway, the person, if they would be standing on themselves, I think it would be stronger composition. However, to be honest, when you take the silhouette and mix it with the sunset or sunrise behind the people, I'm a huge fan of this, and I think it works really well when it's done rightly. So out of the two, I prefer this one, but let's jump into the actual technical review. So from technical point of view, I was already talking about the depth of field. I think the background is way too blurry, and it creates a very unnatural look of it, almost here. And it maybe is the case that you actually have changed the background by yourself, which is perfectly fine. However, even if you changed it, it's way too blurry. You have entire parts here where it makes it look like it was just cut and not really well in a Photoshop. So that's one thing I would be thinking of. I'm not sure about the time of the day. Let's have a look at the information about the camera. You're using Nikon Z50 and f13. So looking at the f-stop, knowing that you were photographing this with f13, I would assume that you actually replace the background, because I can't imagine that f13 would create this kind of depth of field. And that's maybe why it looks so unnatural. It's just something to kind of think about. But if you didn't, I would just be quite interested of how you accomplished so much blur behind the bird. But otherwise, the bird itself is quite sharp. It's maybe slightly going towards the overexposure, but it's not. There is lots of details on it, and that's fine. Moving on this one, I think the silhouette is done perfectly. I think it really works. Again, you're using your Nikon. F8 is a great choice for this scene. ISO 200 as well, 1/200 of a second. I think the setting is well done. Everything, looking at the edges, seems to be nice and sharp. The hair and everything, it just works very well. So I think technically this one is done better than the other one, but in overall, I don't see huge mistakes. Moving on the artistic part of the review. So I will come back to this one again. I'm not crazy about it. I prefer when there is a birds and parrots. I prefer them seeing the whole actual bird. Or if you doing close-up like this, to have a little bit more of the environment and the background to get more of the overall feel. Again, this looks a little bit like the background wasn't really done properly, and the problem is that it's not even that you can see it. You can't easily say that it wasn't done. It's just there is that much of a blur. There is a lots of kind of empty space around him. So it's just, I'm not so sure about it. I would prefer the bird to be all in itself. Moving on this one, artistically, I like it much more. I already mentioned that. I think the composition is quite well done. One thing I would say again is that it would be much better if the person would be either standing alone, or if she or he would be standing a little bit more here to create a little bigger separation from the car. If you want to keep them like this, I would suggest to maybe crop it a little bit more. Let's see if I can just unlock this, and maybe keeping the person on your kind of third and do something like this. But otherwise, let's have a look if we can get, we can get some, so I think it is a lady. So I hope I was right. But like this, it works much better, and I quite like it. So artistically, I think this is quite nice. As I say, I would just try to move the person or keep the person alone, and I think it would work even better. Post-processing wise, this is perfect. I have nothing to add except the crop, and the reason of the crop also being that there is this whole gradient which doesn't need to be there. It doesn't give us anything extra. It doesn't give anything extra to the actual scene. I would maybe cut a little bit of the bottom as well, because obviously there's lots of dark, so maybe something like this. But other than that, what else could you do? You could maybe make the actual warmth a little bit stronger. So maybe something like this. See, before and after. It helps a little bit, just adding a little bit more warmth behind the person. Also, what you could do is you could kind of close the picture from the top by adding a gradient, just something like this with adding more blue, and that's it. But otherwise, I really like this picture. In this one, let's see if we would do different crop, maybe like a square for in this case, if it would help a little bit to do maybe something like this. And I wonder if we would turn it black and white. No, he has a kind of brighter color, so that doesn't help us much. We could add a vignette somewhere here, a little bit, something like this. I also see some kind of sensor dust here, which can be also replaced quite easily. One here, here. I think that helps as well. So something like this, and I think it's a little bit nicer. I think once you get rid of all the empty space around the bird, it helps. In overall, Cheryl, I think when it comes to your mark in overall, I would go for 2 stars. And the reason being that I think you need a little bit more work. I think if I would judge you based on the second picture, I would go for 3. I would go for the on track. But then looking at the first picture, I think there is still a few things you need to kind of learn. I think looking at out of the 2, I think this works much better for you. So that's maybe something I would focus on and start. I think it's always better to start building up the knowledge and everything on something you're already good at, because you're more likely to stick with it. When you move to something what you may be not so comfortable or doesn't work for you that much, we quite often get stuck and then we can't move forward. So in overall, thank you so much. I hope that you're gonna send us more pictures in the future. I can't wait to see them. Until then, thank you. Moving on, next we have a Dan. Dan sent us 2 pictures. So we have a really nice landscape photo here with the mountains and lake and very dramatic sky. And then we have this bird flying high. So let's talk about the first impression. This one I quite like. I am a big fan of landscape. I'm a big fan of dramatic sky and dramatic scenes. My problem is the way we receive the picture. I think the conversion is a huge shame, because as I hope you can see it. Let's see if I can get closer. There's lots of these artifacts from the quality of the photo. All of this is really pixelated, so it will be really difficult for me to tell you if it's sharp or not sharp. And the colors also starting to kind of edge on low quality. So I think that's a little bit of a shame then, because I could give you much more feedback if the pictures would be in higher quality. Moving on, the next one, the bird, I really like. I think there is quite lots of noise, which could be again by the kind of conversion into the JPEG. What I'm not sure about, and I think this is a little bit, lots of wildlife I have the problem with when you do these close-up when they too close. So it's a bird which we all naturally imagine by flying and being free, and you kind of really encapsulate him with your crop and with the picture. So I think that's a real shame. I think that if there would be a little bit more space towards where he's flying or something like that, I think it would really help the whole composition. Other than that, it's a lovely capture. Technically, it's well done, but just the crop, I'm really not sure about. So technically, again, bit tricky for me to say. I mean, from far when I look at it, I can say that it's, I assume it's sharp. Let's see if we have information about the photo. And we do. So you're using Canon and you were using f/25. I wonder why f/25. Maybe it was darker, but it was 1. f/25 is really high f-stop for this kind of situation. I would assume that something around 7, 8, 9, maximum 11 would be perfectly fine. I understand that you were maybe trying to get a longer exposure to calm the water a little bit. However, if you were on f/25 and you were still getting 1/15 of the second, means that it wasn't at the right time, captured at the right time. Although that you get the overcast sky, which quite works here. So you can't always win it. And sometimes it's just as simple as, it's not about you being at the right place at the right time. It's just that you were there, you were there at the right time, but the place just didn't work. So many times it happened to me. I would do all the apps and calculation about the weather and planning, and I would get to the place and I would end up with no picture at all. So that can easily happen. But technically, other than that, the light seems to be right. And if it's overcast, I'm not too worried about the sunset, sunrise. I think it's quite nice. On this one, the bird is nice and sharp. I really like the depth of the field with a blurry background, so well done on that. Again, I think a little bit of a shame that there is no more space where the bird could fly, but technically I think this is well done, and it's lovely. I wonder, so you use 200 millimeters to capture it, f6.3, lovely blur from the lens, and a lovely capture. Artistically, I think you totally have an idea of what you're doing. The reflection being in the middle of the photo, lovely composition. I think if you would be there around 6, 7 or around the sunset time, obviously the water would be calmer, and then you could use like an ND filter or just your camera and really make like a really flat surface and get even more reflection. I think that would be really nice. Also, you would get more smooth in the sky. But again, as I show you, when I kind of zoom in, this almost look like video games from, you know, 70s or 80s, because it's really blurry. So if you're gonna send us pictures in the future, please make sure that they are in better quality so we can tell you more about your photos. When it comes to artistic point, this is a lovely capture technically. I think composition wise, I think that there would be space for improvement, especially because of the character of the picture. Although I understand that this kind of scenes happen just very rarely, so when you're there, it's difficult to think about all of that and so on. And when it comes to post-processing, let's have a look at it. So we are here with the first one. I think your white balance is a little bit more on the green side. So what I always recommend is to go into your Lightroom and then go to the white balance and at least try the auto. And not always, but sometimes it brings us to the right point where from there you can really move on and see. So sometimes what your camera can't see, then your Lightroom can help it, and I think this is much more a natural look. Furthermore, what I would maybe suggest to close the picture a little bit more from the top to add more kind of exposure, and then again from the bottom to really bring the attention towards the center of the picture. That would be my opinion on what to do there. When it comes to the bird, I think it's very natural. I really like the natural edit, and to be honest, I can't really tell you much more there. Let's see the auto. Add a little bit of the yellow, but in overall, I think you've done really well with this picture. So altogether, I think you're on a track. I'm gonna be giving you 3 stars for this overall photography. I think you totally know what you're doing. However, now it's really time to put the two things, your composition and your skills, together and create something special and start to build the portfolio and start to create something else. I think also another thing is when it comes to, you know, those are completely two different photography styles. You know, you have your really nice landscape and you have your birds, and the things just, it's easier to kind of look at both of them separately and see how you can get it and where you can get it from there. Done. Thank you so much for sending them over. I hope we're going to see more of your pictures in the future. Until then, bye-bye. Moving on, next one, we have a Dave, and Dave sent us 2 pictures. And to be honest, Dave, I can't really review much on them. I mean, this isn't much of a photography. I don't know if it's you or no, but then there is the fish with the American flag on it, and then the fireworks behind you. I'm so sorry, but I can't do much there. And then this is some kind of landscape black and white photography with this heavy leak, and then the bird, and I think really I would have to give you 1 star for the overall feel, because you really have to get back to the beginning and start to see. Those are kind of family snapshot, playing around, but it's definitely nothing what you would start to show others and get some kind of rating for it. So Dave, thank you so much for sending the pictures over, but there is not much I can rate on it. And if you have any others, send them over and I'll be happy to look at them, but try to stay away from sending something like this. Moving on to the next one, Jack Moscovita. And I have a feeling, based on this picture, that Jack, I have actually already reviewed your website last week, because I recognize the mountain, the sunset, I recognize the birds. So Jack, I have 2 captures from you as a landscape and then the birds. So let's talk about first impression. So you know, I'm a huge fan of landscape photography, something what really started to make money for me on the beginning of the days. And let's talk about the 2. So this one is lovely, although I'm really not sure about the high frequency texture at the foreground element right here. I think it gets a little bit too busy there, and it takes lots of attention away. But I really like the reflection. I think it's a little bit of a shame there is no texture in the sky, but all in all, it's quite nice, fresh capture there. Moving on the birds, this is a stunning capture. And I really like that the birds are there in their whole beauty. Although the way you send it to me, the quality of the picture, it's really difficult for me to tell you the quality because it's really pixelated, you know, so it's a really low resolution. And for the future, I would suggest you to send me higher resolution photos so I can tell you more in depth about them and what else we could do with them. And finally, this one, as much as I love it, as much as I love the trees and the fog and the sun here, there is something about the sky which just doesn't blend for me together, and it's to do with the colors. There's such a big difference between the colors in the sky and then the golden color on the tree and then the green here and then the dust. I think the idea is lovely, but even if the sunset was like this, I would probably keep the saturation a little bit lower because the combination is just too extreme. The contrast is so unnatural that anybody look at it will be like, that's nice, but how did you do that? How did what application did you edit it with? What sky did you use? You know, so I think that's a huge shame because if it was like this, I think it would help to tune down a little bit the saturation on them. Anyway, let's talk about technical point of view. I think this one is nice and sharp, and probably not the right time of the day because the sky is blue and without any texture, so it would be better to go at other time of the day. However, I think you went on 16th of August, 6:50 in the morning. So this is maybe just after the sunrise. The colors are still not bad. However, if you would be there at any time of the day and there would be some clouds, it would be a bit more interesting. I think everything is sharp. Everything is exposed well. So nothing wrong with this one. This one, because of the quality, it's really difficult for me to tell you if they're sharp or no, but it's a stunning capture and really, I mean, the birds in their movement and everything, well done on that capture. And then this one, all is sharp here, all is sharp here, and the reflection is lovely, and there is a beautiful, beautiful sky behind, so well done for that. Artistically, again, I'm not 100% sure about this one because the mountain, which is for me the main subject, is kind of disappearing behind the trees. The trees are not here, the reflection isn't complete, and most importantly, this is something what is really confusing for the human eye when they see a picture, is something which called high frequency texture, and it's this grass in front, and it really makes the picture busy and complicated for the first time viewer. So just something to kind of try to stay away. Probably the point would be to maybe move forward or somewhere where there is a less of the grass and get more of the reflection inside of the photo. Composition wise here, I can't add nothing. The birds are then in a full strength, full length. Everything worked there. I think obviously it's a shame that there is this tree here because I always talk about confusing foreground element, and that's any kind of foreground like the trees, lamps, houses, cars. When they're there and they don't really kind of belong here, it's almost like somebody cut it and just placed it there. It gets quite confusing for the viewers, so something to try to avoid, but when it comes to wildlife photography like this, I know it's not completely possible. And finally here, I love the composition. Really nice kind of leading line here. This foreground element here works, however, it's a bit small. I think it would be better if it wouldn't be there. The view would be much clearer. The sky is stunning and the mountain is beautiful and the crop is well. So composition-wise, Jake, I think this is very, very nice. Post-processing, nothing to add here. I think it's very pretty, nothing to add here. And here again, as I say, I think a little bit of the saturation down would really help just to bring a little bit more natural feeling. I also feel like you completely lost the color and the details in the forest here and the trees here, which I think is a little bit of a shame. I don't know if that's something what could be actually added or not, maybe just slightly. Because it's just a shame and it makes it even more unnatural. So just something like this and maybe push it forward. But in overall, I think your editing is quite spot on. It's nice, clean, and done quite well. So in overall, Jack, I'm gonna give you 3 stars because I think you're totally on track. I think your pictures are very, very nice. I'm still giving you 3 stars on all the 3 pictures together, so that's the kind of rating. Although I remember when I was at your website, there were some pictures I would totally put on my portfolio because they were great. So in overall, Jack, thank you very much for joining us again. I hope to see more of your pictures in the future, and until then, take care. Moving on to the next photographer, we have a Nikolay. Nikolay sent us 2 photos, and they are almost kind of abstract photos. So let's have a look at them. So we have this kind of interior with some kind of light work, and it's maybe like a long exposure, somebody painting with something. And then again, here we have maybe even more long exposure inside of a really dark place. So, Nikolay, I'm a huge fan of long exposure. I think that's something what everybody knows. And I never really tried anything like this. I think if this is really a long exposure, it's really well done. I think it really works. Although from technical point of view, I think I'm always distracted by really kind of tilting houses, tilting walls and everything. And I think it would help if you would be able to kind of sort it. On this one, it's very abstract and I actually like it. I think it's very nice and, well done on this one. I think it's a lovely capture, and I know technically this is not an easy capture. So how long you were? 3.2 seconds on this one and 3.2 seconds on this one as well. Well done. Very impressive. Cool. Technically, spot on. I think to create all of this is lovely. I quite like these little flashes here. I know some of my photography colleagues and friends wouldn't, but I think it kind of adds another whole part of it. I think I understand of the interior, but to be honest, I don't really like these entrances there. I think you're creating like this really nice and seamless art, which is this. And I think as far as these walls and everything, it really works. Once you get there, it's just a mess, which takes away the whole artistic feel, because this is very smooth and very elegant. That is like a kind of abandoned house mess. On this one, nothing I can add. Brilliant capture, lots of work in it, and well done there. Moving on, the artistic feel, I think that will follow just what I said about technical point of view. I would definitely straighten the walls. That would be my first thing I would do. So let's see if we can do that. Yep. That will bring us to the point where we probably would want to be a little bit closer to the whole subject and get rid of some of the walls. We can unlock this. And if we can maybe keep the balance of the walls so it kind of creates the whole thing. I think if this whole thing would be in the middle here, just between the 2 doors, it would create even stronger composition, but I think it's lovely anyway, and well done. And again, on this one, I really like it. It's my kind of thing. I think maybe the dark is really dark, but still it's a lovely, lovely capture. So artistically, well done. And then post-processing, I have nothing to add. Again, I would Photoshop these out. If I would have to be honest, I think they just take away the attention. I would make it dark or as a part of the tree. Otherwise, as you saw, the straightening is what I would do with it. And that's about as much. I think it's lovely captures and lovely kind of photography. So in overall, Nikolay, based on the 2, I would give you mark number 3. You totally on track. It's just the details. Like I say, with this one, make it 1 meter towards the wall, have it in between. Taking these out or playing with the light there, and it would be totally portfolio shot. Like this, it's not really perfect. It's like me coming for the most amazing sunrise, the light and everything is there, but there are no clouds on the sky. I have amazing capture of the sunrise, but it's not right because I don't have the sky there, so it's not on my portfolio shot. Same with this one. Amazing capture, but it's not perfect. Means that it's not ready for me to show it to my clients. So I hope you understand what I mean. Nikolay, number 3 is a great mark, and I hope to see more of your pictures in the future. Moving on, Sabine. Oh, Sabine, welcome back. So we have 2 pictures from Sabine again. And so this is the most common style of Sabine, pets photography, dots photography, just like this one right here. And then a little bit of landscape photography with some nice light rays on the bridge and stuff. First thing, Sabine, I'm really happy with that I'm starting to see your style, which you already have developed with your pets photography, that it started to apply also to the other photos, just like this bridge, for example. I think that's something what's really important, and it's something what really differentiate professional photographers from kind of like hobbyists, because you want people to look at your photos and say, yes, that's Sabine's pictures. And I can start to see it because when I look at two of them, it's very similar editing. So well done on that. Technically, again, your dog, again, you pushed it. I think it's really, really lovely. Beautiful scene in a forest. The dog is sharp. The light is great. Obviously, there is some Photoshop happening here and so on, but we're talking about technical part, and I think the time of the day, the exposure, everything is right. I think you are a little bit on a noisy side, but that could be also just because of the transformation. Let's have a look if we have a details. We don't, that's a shame. So maybe it was a little bit darker, and that's why you're getting a little bit of the noise in the details. From technical point of view, this is nice and sharp. Obviously, you have nice flat water, so you use probably a little bit of a long exposure, or it was really calm weather. And technically, there is a nice light, golden glow, and it really works. So technically, well done on this one. Exposure is well done and everything. When it comes to artistic feel, I really like this one. I tell you what I don't like on it, and I think this is where it's really tricky to get the balance right, is where your dreamy, almost fairy tale looks of the pets become too much. And I think that's what happens when you have this really, I think if there would be just the lamp, it would work super well. But when you suddenly add to it this fairy, and then you even fairy dust, and then the fairy, it's one step too far. I'm wondering how to explain it to you, but it's like when I have my landscape photo and there is a sky, night sky, and I add the moon there, it works fine because every viewer can imagine the moon there. But if I'm gonna add there a UFO or space rocket or falling star or northern lights, and it's like here in London, it's gonna become one step too far. And I think the fog works really well. I think the lamp would work because that could totally be there. And then the fairy is just one step too far. So it's a kind of very delicate balance, but you will get to know where to go with it eventually. And anyway, it's great fun, and I understand that it makes it looks really nice, but it just doesn't work. I think you're too good of a photographer to do and go one step too far like this. On this one, I love it. I think you could do much tighter crop because you have this huge amount of trees, which doesn't really add anything to the scene. I think if you would go, let's say, even if we keep the same ratio, I think if you would go to something like this, it would create much kind of tighter balance. Again, also when I kind of think about the whole picture, if we just remove this, the main subject is the bridge anyway, so why to keep the bridge so small? I would definitely focus further edit. And also I think it's tilting just a little bit, so maybe something like this, and it works much nicer on me. I think it's quite good to keep the bridge on your like a rule of third and something like this, or not that much, maybe something like this, and it works super well. So composition wise, it's very nice. I'm really impressed. Compared to the glass lens ball, this is perfect work. Well done on that. And post-processing, we already talked about the fairy. I think the fog and smoke actually work very well here. The rays works very well here. I think the white balance is perfect. It's nice, and it's really nicely done. I like the depth of the field. It works very nicely here. Here, as I say, the cropping, the tilting, but otherwise the golden colors, the sun rays, it really works very well. In overall, Sabine, for these two pictures, I'm gonna give you 3 stars because you're totally on track. And one thing I'm gonna suggest you, Sabine, definitely something to consider and put you as a project is to create your own website. I think you're totally on track to start to share your photos with others, and I would suggest you to take a little bit of a time and try to create something. In today's day and age, it doesn't take too long at all, and I really think that your pictures and your photos deserve a space to be put somewhere. So well done, Sabine, and I hope to see more of your pictures in the future. And finally, our last photographer, Samir. Samir, we have 2 pictures from you, and one is almost kind of macro photography of a flower, and the other one is a train with a road and a tree. So let's talk about them. Let's start with the first impression. So Samir, macro photography, is very trendy subject now. It's very popular amongst photographers. However, lots of photographers think that just because they have lens which they can zoom really deep in, it will make them macro photographers. And actually there goes lots of work into these photos, and it involves everything from picking the right time of the day, thinking about composition, having the right tool and equipment, knowing how your camera works, because macro photos are a bit different kind of thing when it comes to setting up a camera. And so when I look at this one, I think there is a really nice depth of the field. I always like when my main subject is in focus. However, I think it's the same that you had to crop it here. I also see some kind of lens dust here or something what makes it a little bit blurry. I am not sure what it is. But it's there. And then finally, I think the shadows the shadows make it really contrasty and not the nicest to look at. I think there must have been another flower or really strong sun. I think to be able to capture this the nicest, you would either want an overcast day or you would want to have some kind of diffuser, which could be just, I saw a photographer of you which was using white shirt. You just hold a white shirt to really diffuse the light, where you would get radius of this super bright spot next to the dark spot. So I think that's one thing. For this one, I'm really not a huge fan of it. I think it's a kind of urban capture, dramatic sky, but damaged road, damaged trains, how you say, you know, the kind of fence, and it's all a bit dark and damaged and not very inspiring. And although I think the composition works, I think you talking about leading line and kind of brings the viewer in, and you have the drama in the sky. In overall, it just doesn't work. It's not there, and I'm not crazy about this picture at all. But technically, to looking at this one, I already talked about the time of the day. It's not really the time of the day, more about the lighting. You need to learn how to work with the light and how to diffuse the light. So either be there when there is an overcast day or the source of the light isn't as strong, so it doesn't create this kind of bright and dark difference in the light. I think your focusing is very good. I really, again, like, and I think it's trendy now more to have your main subject all in focus. I think the time when you would focus just on one petal and the rest would be blurry is gone as well. So that's very nicely done. I also like the fact that you kept the background visible enough so people can use a little bit of the imagination of what's behind rather than blur it completely to the green. So well done on that. On this one, technically all is in focus. You have a texture on the sky, you know, and I think there's nothing wrong with it from technical point of view. The light is right. The time of the day isn't the most perfect, but it's better than a blue sky, so well done on that. However, again, when we're gonna move to the artistic point of view, we can repeat again the same thing. So talking about artistic, I think the crop is a shame. I think it's a shame that you're missing the bit here. I think it's really important to keep an eye on the edge of your photos and keep everything inside, especially when it's your main subject. I think for a flower like this, it would even work if you could just make it even tighter. So let's say something like this would work as well, because I think it would just work. It's a lovely flower and it works, but just back to the points I was saying. If I would talk about the rules of composition, this picture would work completely. There is the leading line, a tree in this whole thing, and drama on the sky. But in overall, it's not the best selection of a subject. The damaged road, the trains, the tree, and then the fence. It's a difficult composition and difficult thing put together. I also think that you have some kind of sensor dust here. I can see it here. And I, again, saw it on the petal here. So something to look at your camera to see if maybe some of your gear is not leaving like a dust marks. Post-processing, I think this one is nice. I would just check the white balance, but in overall, it's more on a greener side. So maybe just a little bit of a yellow would help. I think when it comes to exposure, it's nice. There are nice detail, highlights are fine, and everything is fine. I think when it comes to this one, it's way too unsaturated. The white balance, you can't do much. Obviously, the scene was like this. In overall, I would suggest to maybe turn this even to just a black and white to get the most out of it. I would also get rid of some of the sky if I could, but then there is the tree, so we cannot really. So I think that's a little bit of a shame, and we're not gonna spend much time on it because I'm really not 100% sure about this picture at all. Look for different subjects, Samir. In overall, I'm gonna give it 2 stars because there is more work you need to do to move forward. Although I think you understand the basics, I think you know how to set up your camera, I think you understand what the composition requires, but now you need to put the 2 of them together to really come out with something special. So Samir, thank you so much for sharing the photo with you. I hope sharing the photo with us. And if you have more, make sure you send them to us in the future. And that same goes for all of you guys. If you have a picture you would like us to review and critique, make sure you send them to us. The easiest way is to follow us on Facebook and visit our website where you can scroll all the way down on the homepage and just upload your photos to our Dropbox and have them reviewed by our team here. So guys, thank you very much for today, and I can't wait to see you again next week.